times 3 equals 18. 6 times 4 equals 24, or 4 times 5 plus 4 more. 6 times 5 equals 30. 6 times 6 equals 36, or 6 squared, and that's what you get. 6 times 7 equals 42. Go read a book, you heard me shoo. 6 times 8 equals 48. You're learning math, now ain't that great. 6 times 9 equals 54. When you buy a house, will there be carpet on the floor? 6 times 10 equals 60. Now sevens are the best.
Welcome to Revolutionary Math. All children can learn. Revolutionary math is not a curriculum. It is an attitude and a tactic to respect and expect children and teens to study and learn math. During the summer of 1998, Grassroot News and the GIFT program embarked on an academic enrichment experiment which utilized social service techniques and the work ethic to achieve academic improvement in math. Revolutionary math. All children can learn.
Revolutionary Math is an experiment we're doing this summer through the GIFT program at the North Portland Youth and Family Center. We're working with young people who have low math skills, and the goal is to raise those skills. This includes some pre-post testing, study groups, and working with rhythm and math and helping kids to relate math to everyday life. This is a blend between social services, skill building, living skills, and academic endeavor.
As a social service agency and small business, we struggled to discover more effective ways to teach low-income children of color basic math. Historically, in our school district and urban school districts across the country, low-income children of color scored 2 to 3 grades behind their grade level in math. This is unacceptable.
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons why, and it's not just black and minority children, also poor white children. You'll see the exact same thing occurs. One, and many people are talking about this now, most of the people who teach math in public schools are not very well trained. Many of them were not math majors in college. I think if the statistics still stand, fully 60% of all your high school teachers are teaching subject areas that they did not major in college. So you have people who are trying to teach math, which can be complicated, who themselves are not math majors and not very skilled. And once you get beyond just math, if you look at the amount of time that a person spends learning how to be a teacher, it's very, very little time in college. They might, in some instances, they might spend part of their last year in school actually practicing whatever part of the teaching profession they're going into during student teaching. Well, doesn't it seem strange to you that for a person who wants to become a plumber or a carpenter, that they have to spend far more time practicing their craft, being an apprentice, than you have for a person who wants to become a teacher? So when you ask why the students do poorly in school, the reason is that the adults who teach them have been poorly trained, and the consequence of that is that children, especially children that society says are not going to succeed anyway, which are poor children of all ethnic groups, low expectations for these children plus poorly trained adults is why these children do poorly in math.
Where I came from and how I got to be. And the reality is that I came from the same place that you are now, and maybe a little bit worse off than you are. I grew up in Northeast Portland in the Albina neighborhood, which was the African-American neighborhood, back in the early 1950s, and I still live in that community by choice. Now, I went to Elliott. Sound familiar? I went now Tugman. I went to Boise, which is now Boise Elliott. I went to Girls Poly, which is no longer in existence, and I went to Oregon State. So, you know, I still can remember my address. It was 127 Northeast Stanton, and the house is still there, and new people live in it. But I say that to say to you that you can be anything that you want to be, and no one and nothing can stop you from being who you want to be. Now, at 8 years old, I decided that I wanted to be a teacher. I grew up being raised by a mother. My parents were divorced, and my mother worked full-time every day while we went to school, and there were 4 of us. So, you know, no, don't look at me and think I came from the gravy train, because I came from the hard side of how life can be for young people. And, you know, I consider myself a living testament that if you work hard, apply yourself, then none of that matters. Because when I look back, none of that handicapped me, even though I had to work twice as hard. And as long as you look like the people in this room look, you will always have to work twice as hard. You need to understand that. And so, to get where I am now, with lots and lots of work, paying my dues, and making sure that when I went to school and they didn't want me to get it, that I got it regardless. So for the kid who says the teacher wouldn't teach me that, I was the person that would not allow the teacher not to teach me. And I remember a situation when I was in 8th grade, and I had a teacher, and the sad part about this is he was African American, and when we started to read, he assigned me to the same reading book that I had read in 5th grade, and I had read the book from cover to cover. And that really upset me, and I went to him and I said, look, I read this reading book, you know, and he said, like, so what? You can read it again. I said, I can't read it. I'm in 8th grade. This is a 5th grade book. So, you know, from that, what I learned was that you have to say what you want. You have to say what you won't tolerate without being disrespectful. And then when somebody tries to give you what you don't want anyway, you go and you find the book that's on your level, and you read that book and not the book that they wanted you to. So that's kind of the question, the answer to that math piece is that as kids, you can't expect adults to always want to do right by you. And what you have to learn is that you have a lot of inner power, and you need to take hold of that power and start to use it. So, if you have that teacher and that teacher's not teaching you what you need to know, then you talk to your parents. Then you go, you know, you go down the line, and you may have to talk to 20 people before you get somebody to listen. But I don't know any school anywhere where there's not at least one person that will listen to what kids have to say and what their complaints and concerns are. That's real unfortunate. But part of the reason that there's misteaching is because many of the teachers, even though they've gone to college, are not adequately prepared to teach. They don't know what you need to learn. And in this state, until the last few years, there's been no standards. And so people could just kind of teach whatever they wanted to. And if they wanted to get you to the point where you could take trigonometry, they did. And if they had no interest in seeing you take trigonometry, or they happened to have a racist attitude and maybe think you didn't have the ability to take trigonometry, then they just kind of did what they wanted to. At this point, we have all these standards now that you have to meet. And I'm convinced, because I've seen it happen, that all of you have the ability inside you to do that. But what you don't have, and what I see missing from our kids that really disturbs me, is you don't have the perseverance. And you can't take a punch, fall down, and get back up, and then start punching again, you know? And I'm always trying to figure out, does that make any sense to you guys? You know, when you come to something hard, that's when you start to act out. That's when you start to, you know, it's too hard for you, rather than take the risk of having everybody know that you don't know it, then you go to Stupidville and start behaving in inappropriate ways. So, you know, what I say is you don't have to do that. And what I've done at Jefferson is we have put together a support system for kids. And anybody who comes to Jefferson will recognize immediately that it's a new day, and I call it the new Jefferson. That support program is so tight that it's going, I mean, for somebody to fail at this school, they're going to have to be dancing real fast, and they're going to have to be dancing some dance that nobody else has ever seen or heard of, because all the tutorial help that you need, all of the, we've put together some classes that only have 15 kids in them so that the teachers can interact better with you. We have, and I know that math department, I know what you're going to say, because everything you would say, tell me your name again? Latoya. Everything you would say, Latoya, is absolutely true and unexaggerated. But you will be happy to know that there is a full new staff of math teachers who do know how to teach math and who understand how they need to go about working with kids in order for kids to get it, so to speak. So, you know, what I really like to do is answer questions more than lecture.
Keep on pushing. Keep on pushing. I've got to keep on pushing. I can't stop now. Move up a little higher. Some way or somehow. 'Cause I've got my strength, and it don't make sense not to keep on pushing. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Keep on pushing. Now maybe someday I'll reach that higher goal. I know I can make it with just a little bit of soul. 'Cause I've got my strength, and it don't make sense not to keep on pushing. Now look yonder. What's that I see? A great big stone wall stands there ahead of me. But I've got my pride, and I'm moving on the side and keep on pushing.
How you get what you need is by knowing what it is that you want. That, number one, we're training teachers this summer, and we're sending teachers to a variety of sources to be trained. So one of the things we've done is we've sent teachers, math teachers, out into the world of work to find out from the workplace what kind of math kids need to have in order to be able to work and be successful on their jobs. The other piece is that we've sent teachers to this integrated math training out at Gresham High School, and it's like a 5-day, all-day kind of thing. And we've already brought the teachers together, and they've started meeting, and we've been working with the benchmarks so that they know where they need to take kids, which is something that most teachers don't know. And, you know, that really is the starting point. Where do you need to get? The benchmarks are the state standards, and the benchmarks are the points along the line where we're checking to see if you're on the track for meeting those standards. And those are red flags, because if, like the kids at Jeff in math, you're not on the track, then there's some intense intervention that needs to happen. Now, the intervention for math at Jefferson is a series of classes that are called math support classes, which are small group a lot of hands-on approach to math instead of working 100 problem kind of thing. So it's using and manipulating items to, and objects to be able to learn the concept. And then there's a next step up series of classes called Math Concepts. And then we've got a tutorial program that we're working on as a piece with SEI for kids that are having math trouble, and credit recovery courses all through the day. So say you're a sophomore, you got those friends that didn't pass freshman math, and there's always been at Jefferson this rule that you can't, if you didn't pass a class, you couldn't repeat it. And of course, if you don't repeat it, how do you end up with the credit? You don't. You end up as a plus kid. And you know what a plus kid is?
What is it?
A plus kid is a kid that starts in their freshman year, finishes without enough credits to become a sophomore. They put a little plus by their name, and they're not really a freshman, they're not a sophomore because they don't have enough credits. And they go into their sophomore year anywhere from 2 to 4 credits short. How can you graduate from high school? High school is a 4-year program. Not possible. And then the underlying piece to that is that there was this rule that if a kid didn't pass a class, there was no provision for them to have an opportunity to repeat that class or to take another class in place of that one to get their math credit. And the only way that you could then get your credit was to go over to the Benson Night School and pay $40 for half a credit, and or go to summer school and pay $200. Now that was the playing field. And in math, 70% of the kids who went to Jefferson last year were not able to pass a math class.
Is that like that Mr. Clark thing?
Across all the grades, 70% of the kids did not pass math. So 70% of our students who are coming back at this point are short a math credit, at least one. So we've built in what we call credit recovery. It's a new concept, not being used anywhere in this state, but it is being used in other parts of the country successfully. And the credit recovery classes are not scaled down versions of math, but they're classes that use different approaches and different materials and teaching strategies. And those are the classes that I've created that are hands-on, because our kids really do learn math better when it's hands-on, and it's, they can put their bodies into doing it as opposed to just trying to sit down and work problems. So it's a tight program. The goal for this year for plus kids is that there will not be one freshman who finishes the year at Jefferson who is not a full-fledged sophomore.
How did math play on it? Well, spending money. Spending money. And just buy it, like I said, it's a lot of money, but you just got to go by piece and piece. You can't just go all at once because it's a lot of money. I mean, like when I first started, I took the whole body off the carriage, the undercarriage, and I started the undercarriage first, paint it, get everything chrome, and I put the body back on it, and then start painting the body. And that's where I've been spending my time in my math. I mean, slowly, but it takes a lot of time. I've been spending most of my time. I've spent about at least 5 years on it.
slower. No rider is a real goer. Hey.
Always the quiet ones that you got to watch. Right, Latrice?
Pyramid has 4 triangles on each side, right? Okay. Now you've heard of this in mathematics? What's that called? Pi, yeah. What's pi? 3.14256 What else, Kumazi? Forgot. Yeah, it goes on and on, but you don't see any trends. Pi is a very important naturally occurring function. We wouldn't have flowers that makes the earth beautiful without pi. Okay, the food that you eat, it grows out of the ground in relationship to this function here. These early Africans knew about pi. They knew about this concept called pi. And it was in the Great Pyramid. I won't go into that now, but they used that to build this building that's still standing today after some 4,000 years. Very powerful and serious mathematics, folks. So we need to study our history. To get the inspiration to do the things that we've done before, we need to do it again today. Okay, Paul? Yeah, we need to do it again today. You cannot get through school without this knowledge. It's important that you have this knowledge. So as I said, Stanford University is here in the U.S., Harvard, University of Oregon, etc. And people from all over the world come to the United States to do what? They knew where the knowledge was. They knew where the power was in the minds of your ancestors. So they wanted to steal your mind. You're going to allow them to steal your mind? No. We have to reclaim our mind. So they went into Africa to study the geometry and the trigonometry and the math and so forth, and have built and told the world that they have done these things, and your ancestors have been forgotten. Now we're struggling to recover that, to tell you that you are of value, that you are important, that, Paul, you have to learn mathematics if you're going to succeed in this world. If you're going to be anybody, that you have to know mathematics. And it's not difficult. It's not a mystery. It's a very easy thing. You ever heard of one of those guys that went in there? It's called Pythagoras. Now, Serena, right? Syria, I'm sorry. You said, oh God, when I wrote geometry up there. You just set yourself up. That's all you did. Pythagoras. You heard of this cat called Pythagoras? Well, in geometry, that's something called a Pythagorean theorem. And Pythagoras was a Greek that went into Africa to study mathematics. Not only he said, whoa, I came to study math, but I also can study religion, literature, governance, philosophy, writing, grammar. All this stuff was being taught in Africa. He said, I'm going to stay here for a while. You know how long he stayed and studied? for 22 long years. And he even wrote himself that it wasn't for the African, he wouldn't be the genius that he was. Before the time of racism, before people didn't want Africans to achieve, black people, African Americans to achieve, because they know if you control the information, you control somebody's what? You control their thinking. You control what they do. You control their behavior. But if you know and know how to do the right thing, you can control your own destiny. Okay? So the name of the game is acquiring this information. So Pythagoras studied for how long? Let's spell his name. Latoya, spell Pythagoras for me. Very good. Pythagoras. Okay, studied in Africa for 22 years. Okay? My point is, without mathematics, you've given up your power. Don't sacrifice your power. You have to study your history, know who your ancestors are. Strive someday to go back to your ancestral homeland. Because if you don't, you're giving up your power. So I'll just summarize in a little piece of poetry, okay? And real simple to understand, real simple word. And it goes something like this. Minute, you want to recite it for me? No. It goes something like this. Minute by minute, hour by hour, as you lose your history, you lose your power. So open your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see and understand what you hear. Thanks very much. You're very attentive.
And music. And I guess, does anybody in here like, I'm sure you guys enjoy listening to music and enjoy rap and stuff like that. But does anybody like do a little rap? Like, you know, just, you could you like, if you could, I'm gonna start by having him do just a small segment of a rap, and then I'm gonna try to show you. No, just a few words, enough for me to get a rhythm from it. That's all. Go ahead. Okay. Okay. First, give me the beat. Make sure we get the beat, and then I'm gonna talk about beat in a minute in a correlation with math. Okay. Come on. I know it's gonna be. I know it's. Who can do it? Has a beat, and. Now look what I'm doing here. Look what I'm doing here. Pushing this thing. What's it? Come on, we're not. I'm gonna just take part of it. Da. That's enough. That's enough. Ba. Look at that. So the first one will be like, it's like jungle sometimes. There you go. And then I got to put a dot on that. No. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. We'll talk about it in a minute. We'll talk about the periods. That's really good. But that's not what that dot is for. What that dot does is every time you see a dot on a note like that, it gives it half of that note's previous value. So you add. So notes have. So notes that we use in music. The notes we use in music have values. For instance, and I bet you some of you all know this thing. What kind of note is this called? Huh? Oh, who said that? Yeah. Yeah, now, see, we're moving. Now we're moving now. Now we're moving. Now we're getting past the laughing. Right. That's a whole note. And you know how many beats it gets? You remember? It gets 4 beats. The big one, it gets 4 beats. Yeah. What kind of note is that? Who said that? Somebody said it. Come on. You have no idea. Y'all know stuff. You know, what is it about nowadays that kids like to let you know that they know stuff? Okay. But this one is a half note, and it gets so if that's a whole note, hold on, I'm gonna get to it. You know, hold it. You got it. if this is a whole note, and I say this is a half note, how many beats would that get? Huh? 2. Yeah. Oh, now we're using, now we're in the logic. You know, and this is a, what kind of note? You said it. Quarter note. 1. Now, see these kind of notes I used over here with the bars over them? These are different. This is what you rappers use all the time. See, rappers don't use these simplified versions of notes. They're all into the quantum mechanics. No, they are. They're all in the quantum mechanics of music. They start out with 8th notes. A lot of times they turn into 16th. So these are called 8th notes. 8th notes. 8th notes, like this. Okay. If the whole note gets 4, the half note gets 2, and the quarter note gets 1, what do you think the 8th note gets? An 8th? Think about it. Split this atom. A half. 1/2 beat of P. And you know how let's figure out how we would want to count that. So if you got a beat, if everybody got a beat, everybody just take one hand and just do the beat with me. Ready? This is a quarter beat. 1. Come on. Okay, and if we were going to do 8th notes, and we're going to split that in half, we would double that up. How would we do that? And so in a slower tempo, now listen, look at what you did. So when I strung those 8th notes together, he said, it's like the jungle sometimes. You see what I'm saying? Did everybody get that? Yeah. Huh? And that's pretty simple. Yeah, in music, there's so much, like music is just all mathematics. For instance, if I got, we'll leave this concept for a while. I'm going to keep that on the board. Because I can make that, look, I can do this to that. This is what's neat, because this is how rappers really operate. What kind of notes you think those are? Da, 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 da. Huh? They're called 16th notes, which means they would get what? How much of a beat? If 8th notes get half a beat, 16th notes would get what? Huh? Who said that? Me. Yeah. People up in here thinking. Right. They would get an 1/8 of a beat. So it would take how many 16th notes? Check this out. How many 16th notes would it take to make a beat? Come on, y'all think. Come on. Junior. How many? More. 4. 4. So you got your beat. See what I'm saying? It operate just in that thing. Now let's talk about a couple of higher things about math. Sound. I'm just going to draw a note because this could be any note. Call it any. It could be a C. And then I'm going to make this note right here. And this could be a B. Let's say this C is 264 cycles. Let's say this B is, with the B, since the B is a lower note, take a guess. Would it have more cycles or less? More. It would actually have less. The lower you go, the less the cycle. That's what I want y'all to do. So I want y'all to go ahead and make a giant stab at it so we can really figure out something. So this would be like 260. Now, I know most of you like go to church. How many people sing in the choir? All right. Now this is what we're talking about. What do you do when you're in the choir and you're learning a new song and there are people around you and they're not getting the parts and the choir sounds really, really bad? Yeah, because they, yes, because, and guys, I want you to really listen up at this, because this, you know, when you get to be a real old person, you'll remember this stuff. That's right. And so, let's say, and once you become aware of this, you actually will start using this. You actually start using this concept. Let's say that the note y'all want to sing is a C. But your neighbor next to you had a night out last night and partied. And so when you when you hum the note to her, that neighbor thinks it's a B, and the neighbor does that. Is that going to sound good when y'all do that together? Okay, there's a reason why. There's a reason why. You see this? You see these two numbers? Well, when you put two notes together like that, this is why when people sing and play out of tune, that it sounds so bad. You know what I'm saying? You go in the crowd, and then sometimes, like, we go to church, and then some of the sisters who just should be like on the amen bench, they still, "Whoa," you know what I'm saying? But you can't say nothing to them, because in music, when you put the two notes together like that, they're not supposed to be that you don't want, you get plus. How much is that, folks? Together? Huh? That's the note you get. That's the note you get. You know, which ain't the note you're trying to sing. Am I right or wrong? Am I right or wrong? That's the note. And you not only get that note, but you get this too. Minus gives me what? Huh? You get that note too. And when you really get into it and you start using strings and stuff in the orchestra, you start multiplying and doubling and dividing and everything. And so for these two notes that you and the sister in the choir that y'all want to sing right, from now on, when you buy somebody, you say, "Sister, that ain't the right note. We need to be on the right note, because if we ain't on the same note, a whole bunch of other notes are going to come out." And that's why it sounds out of tune. You see what I'm saying? I mean, have you ever been along where you see people and they have like the boom box, and the boom box is playing, and they're trying to sing the song? Oh yeah. It sounds bad, doesn't it? It is really bad, because they're never actually singing the same note. What you really have in between there is probably 4, 5, or 6 other notes going on at the same time, because the laws of math don't change. You know, if C is 264 cycles, there is no way to change it. That's what it's going to be. And it doesn't matter how much you think that you love that song. If you ain't on C at 264 cycles, it's not going to come out right. And y'all know y'all got friends. Y'all got big friends be trying to sing like that all the time, huh? They won't study. So one of the ways to make sure that when you're doing that kind of thing comes out right is to get with a piano that's in tune and really try to get close, find the note, and you could just, the piano has 88 keys. You can go down every one of them till you find the note it is you want to sing, and listen to it with your ear. See, the thing about mathematics, and I'm going to say this, I want everybody to catch this. The thing about mathematics is, my personal belief, is that the landlord of the universe created math as a way of simplifying all the laws that makes everything move, stand still or hold together. It's only a tool. So you can't say that math is different than spirituality, sound, rocks, rain, sunshine, any of those things. You can't say that it's different than all that, because that's my personal belief, that it's like the glue, it's the explainable glue. I mean, you know how they're looking out in the universe now, and they're finding all of this new stuff? I mean, every time you look at it, right? And they're just amazed at how it's put together, you know, and all this kind of stuff. So that's my personal belief about math. So there's nothing wrong with, and there's nothing wrong with learning a lot about it, because it'll help you in everything you do. Now, that does not mean that you want to become a person that has on eyeglasses with a little pocket protector up here with 5,000 pin and becomes a nerd. That has nothing to do with it. Okay? That has nothing to do with it. Now, the other thing, let's go back to our original phrase right here. I love it. It's like a jungle sometimes. In order to be a good rapper, now listen to me closely. In order to be a good rapper, you have got to know somehow, and I believe this is possible. See, I believe that the landlord kind of just passes out things at the landlord's discretion, because I have heard some people do some stuff that was just incredible, that was on the level of Beethoven or Haydn. You guys do know that Beethoven. You guys do know that Beethoven was black. You do know that, right? You did know that. You didn't. You didn't know that, huh? You didn't know that? Nope. You didn't know that Beethoven's mama was from Jamaica? You didn't know that? Okay. Huh? You see what I'm saying? Huh? So now let's just rush on down to the library and get some Beethoven records. You see where I'm coming from? Because to me, this level, when you get to this level of doing music, it's not about who you think it is doing it. It's just who's doing it. This is a whole note. Those are whole notes. Okay, now I'm going to do half notes. Remember now half notes? Okay, now I'm going to do quarter notes. And now eighth note. And now 16th notes. So, you see what I'm saying? And when you start mixing all that stuff together, you go. That's what I do for a living.
Prettier than all the world, and I'm so proud, I'm so proud, I'm so proud of you. You're only one fellow's girl, and I'm so proud, so proud, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of being loved by you. And it would hurt to know if you ever were untrue. Sweeter than the taste of a cherry, so sweet. And I'm so proud, girl. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you. Compliments to you from all the people we meet. Yes, and I'm so proud. I'm so proud. Believe me, I love you too. I'm so proud of being loved by you. I'm so proud of being loved by you.
How I use mathematics in my daily life, besides computers, is money. When you become a grown-up and you have responsibilities, you have bills and any type of money that you want to spend, so I use subtraction and addition. When I get paid, I add how much my check is to how much money I have in the savings account. And when I have to pay bills, I have to add all of my bills up and subtract that from my savings. Another way is if I want to determine how much money I'm going to make this year, I can just double how much my hourly rate is. So if I make $11 an hour, then the whole year I'll make $22,000 that year. So that's how I use math in that way. I love to shop, so if you see something on sale, whether it's the new Nikes or a new computer program or a new game for your PlayStation, you have to see what the percentage off is for the sale. Now sometimes you may say, 25% isn't that much. Well, you can use percentages and subtraction multiplication to figure out how much that's going to be before you actually get to the cash register. And believe me, sometimes cash registers make mistakes. So it's important to know how much the item's are going to cost before you get to the cash register. Another thing is counting the change back when someone gives you change. You just can't depend on the cashier when you go to McDonald's to give you the right amount of change. So you just count backwards or have them count the money back into your hand. So mathematics is very important to make sure that you have your finances in order. A computer has a definite amount of space for data that's on the computer. When you want to install a video game or a program, that game takes up space. So what you would use is subtraction to subtract how much space you currently have on your computer minus how much data and how much space that computer program is going to take. If your hard drive is 5 meg and the computer program is 2 meg, you would subtract that 5 from 2, and that's how much you would have left. And we show realtors how to do that. That's all I really know about math and
a line of figures and being able to subtract something out of it and being able to comprehend, story math. I mean, like, Johnny went to the store and bought 4 apples. Each one's cost 25 cents. Being able to understand that. And a lot of times what happens is kids get in the 4th and 5th grade and 6th grade and discover they can't do that. They can't keep up with their peers anymore when they go places and someone says, well, I want that. They say, well, man, I only have $1 with me. And they go, well, and because they don't understand that $1 is less than $1.19. or a dollar is more than 99 cents. They have no comprehension there. And so they give it to the cashier and they go, well, is that enough? And you're thinking, well, don't you know? Well, no, they don't know. They're just hoping it's enough. But by the time they get to that grade, it's so monumental for them to learn, they kind of shut down and they usually just avoid it. And so then they find another way to skirt around the issue to make it work. And that's when sometimes they'll give more money out there and let the person count the change to them. And because they don't know how to do it and they don't know if they have enough, you know. And I find adults who come in here sometimes who have the same problem. They'll come in and they'll want to buy something and it's $1.25 or $1.50 and they'll say, well, is this enough? And they'll lay down $2. And I know it's because they can't count. And so I say, sure, that's enough, and I'll give them change. I don't want to insult them because I know that they've learned this mechanism in self-defense, but the part of it is that they've never gone back to learn it because for them it's become such a great wall. And then it's admitting that you can't do something that they know they should be able to do. And so therefore they're saying they're a failure, and so they're compensating for that failure, but they're not really trying to learn about it. And I find this happens every day. I think the school system is content with putting children out. Whether you learn or not is not what the issue is. It's getting you through the system, and that's what they say. And I'm sorry, you know, I know I have friends that are teachers, and I'm not saying it's a teacher's fault. I'm not saying that, but what it is, if you look at it, you accept it. It's the system that's the fault. And it's also, and part of that system is also parents, because when you take a child someplace, you should let them pay for something. You should let them count the change back. You should make them responsible for that change. So I think it makes a difference. But math is important. And if you find your child, or if you find yourself that you are falling behind, the shame in saying, I don't really understand this, how can I understand this better? Or go to the library and ask a stranger, say, excuse me, but do you have any tapes or any books on math that's simplified or whatever? The shame of that is not as monumental as when you get to be 35 and you can't count change and someone embarrasses you somewhere, or you embarrass yourself, you know. Or the worst can happen is that someone actually takes advantage of you because you don't know any difference, you know. I mean, I was one who admitted that. I went to the library and I said, where are the index cards? I mean, I haven't been to the library in so long, and I said, I was looking around for the index cards, and there was this little old lady behind the counter who had to be in her 70s. She said, honey, it's right over there. And I looked over there and there was this computer, and I went, that's not index cards. She goes, well, no, it's all in that computer. And I went, oh my God. She goes, well, if you wait just a minute, I'll show you how to use it. And I could say, well, I felt embarrassed that this 70-some-year-old woman was showing me how to use a computer, but, you know, or I could have walked out and just said, no, go someplace that still has index cards. But it was so interesting that she took me over there and showed me. Once she showed me the wealth of information that's in the computer and the expedience of doing it, it's so much faster than looking at index cards. You have to keep going back and forth in the index cards. In the computer, you can put a subject, and they'll show you all the related ones, and you can just spend 20 minutes and print it all out and know exactly where you are, where you can spend hours in index cards trying to find information. So math is the same way. It's the information is out there, and sometimes it may not seem like it's readily available, but it is. It's just, and if it's your peers that you have a problem with, or that you feel embarrassed about, then go to someone who's not your peers. You know, go to the library. You know, go to a teacher that you feel that can help you. And if the teacher doesn't help you, don't stop there. Go somewhere that someone will help you and say, hey, I want to know this. I want to understand this, and demand that they teach you, because they don't care.
500. With 6, there's no trick. Just study hard and you will get it. 6 times 2 equals 12. 6 times 3 equals 18. 6 times 4 equals 24, or 4 times 5 plus 4 more. 6 times 5 equals 30. 6 times 6 equals 36, or 6 squared, and that's what you get. 6 times 7 equals 42. Go read a book, you heard me shoo. 6 times 8 equals 48. You're learning math, now ain't that great. 6 times 9 equals 54. When you buy a house, will there be carpet on the floor? 6 times 10 equals 60. Now 7s are the best, and 7 rhymes with heaven. 7s are not like the rest. 7 times 2 equals 14. Do you ever laugh in your dreams? 7 times 3 equals 21. You've done a full term with a whole lot more to learn. 7 times 4 equals 28. Lay out your clothes now, don't be late. 7 times 5 equals 35. Learning math is not jive. 7 times 6 equals 42.